This episode is sponsored by Shutterstock.com. With over 20 million high-quality stock photos, illustrations, vectors, and video clips, Shutterstock helps you take your creative projects to the next level. For 30% off, head on over to Shutterstock.com and use offer code Gamebreaker7. This episode is also brought to you by Audible. For a free 30-day trial and to receive a free audiobook, just head on over to audible.com/Gamebreaker. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Monty's Minutes, episode 33 for July 2nd, 2013. I'm Gary again. You're watching Gamebreaker TV. Joining me, as always, the man, the myth, the legend, the one and the only Mr. Monty Sharma. How are you, sir?
I am doing just great, Gary. How you doing?
Excellent, excellent, excellent. A couple weeks off, and we're back with the show. So we've got people with many questions, and we need to give them answers, so we're here. First up this week, we've got a little bit of a video clip here. Set this up for me. Who did you get to talk to? Where was this recorded?
Yeah, so one of the things Mass Digi does is we run a summer program for college students. And we bring in teams of students that work for 11 weeks to create a game sort of end-to-end. And so the team you're going to see here actually won our game challenge this year. They're building a game called Wobbles. And, you know, I got to say, really impressed with the team. These guys had their act together from day one. They've worked really hard, and they're going through that whole exercise of starting with an idea and trying to put a polished game together. So, you know, I thought we'd hear from them sort of at the beginning of their process, and then we'll talk to them a couple of times as they go through it. And hopefully by the time they launch and people can try out their game, you'll understand the effort it took to build it.
Great. So where are they at right now with the project? Is it just in the initial stages after they've won? Or is that really what they're going to walk us through?
Yeah. So the first clip is just about, hey, this is our idea. This is what we're trying to do. And then in a couple of weeks, we'll bring you back with a little bit of gameplay video and what they've cut out and what they've changed. And actually, with the 4 teams that we have, I actually think one of the best lessons they're learning is stuff to leave on the cutting room floor, if you will. You know, people don't realize how important editing is when it comes to ideas and designs and all of that. So finding that core fun and building out. So we'll hear from them about that next. And then once they get near launch and after launch, you know, it'd be great to hear, all right, here's what went well, here's how it launched, and the kind of success they had.
All right, let's check it out.
No, Mike.
Okay. And again.
Wobbles is pretty much lemmings, but instead of manipulating the lemmings, you're manipulating the environment around the wobbles. You do this by placing various gadgets, such as fire traps to boost them up, fountains to cause them to safely land, and other things like that.
So, what have you done so far?
Well, we started with a nice playable prototype, and from there we've put in a lot of art assets, which have taken a lot of concepts and trials and tribulations. So it's taken a long time to kind of develop a style and work out the kinks to get to an alpha, I guess. So.
What do you think your biggest challenge remaining is?
Our biggest challenge is to bring everything together and create a nice game that overall just fits together and is playable and that everyone can easily just pick up and enjoy.
Was there any big unexpected challenge?
Probably the most unexpected challenge was the amount of art assets that we need and kind of bridging the gap between artists and designers and programmers to kind of come together and make something look polished.
So now they're going to show some of the art assets that they put together for this. So you'll see them pop up on the screen.
None of these
Just
will
a
work.
second.
Okay.
Oh, there we
have
go.
that features list.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Features list. Countdown. It
Countdown
starts
to
out
zoom.
zoomed out, and then a countdown, and it zooms in on your start
All
location.
right, you doing that?
Yeah, I got it.
All right.
How
This is
large
bad
is their
editing
team?
on
How
my
many people do
part.
they have working on the project?
It's not going to spell word.
So
They're probably the
there's
most
5
polished
people
things
working on the project. 4 were in the original team, and then we added 1 artist onto the team because they were trying to build environment art. So they needed all sorts of stuff in the background and things like that. So, that helped them sort of create this whole setup. One of the ideas they hit on sort of early in the process is when the wobbles die, they leave something behind.
Mhm.
So in each of the wobbles, here's what the wobble looks like. And then after they die, for the 70s wobble there, the hair's left over. For the Greek guy, it's the the little I forget what the hell they call that leaf thing that goes around your head. I'm getting dumber as I get older.
What else do you guys
So-
have?
Very cool stuff. So what's
Yeah.
their sort of what's like their ETA? What's their timeline looking like right now?
So we're targeting launch by August 9th. And, right now
wow.
they've got, so they've built 60 levels so far. But what they're struggling with is they're getting the polish, it's right, but how do you keep a player motivated? How do you move them through the levels? How do you get that tutorial right so players know what to do? And so, in the next video, why don't we find out a little bit in a couple of weeks on how they went through the whole effort to get the tutorial right and motivate the player and sort of how they're collecting statistics and things like that. So, don't want this just to be a pitch for the game, but this is what real game development's like.
Very cool. I mean, do you find that a lot of for a first game, especially, is it kind of a smart move? I noticed it's like they're even sort of saying reworking of a classic with a new twist. So he's basically and brings up lemmings, right? So is that really a good idea for a lot of people? Is maybe not to try and reinvent the wheel completely, but maybe sort of try and find new twists on games that we may be somewhat familiar with?
Yeah, the funny thing is there's not that many new games under the sun. There are they're usually twists on concepts. There's mixtures of ideas. When they the story of the pitch for Speed, the movie, was it's Die Hard on a bus.
Okay.
So all right, that's the twist. We're going to a movie that everybody's seen. So games have the same sort of thing of we're combining Fruit Ninja with Lumberjacks. We're doing all of these different twists. So one of the hardest problems actually that we have with young developers is they're looking for that massive, different, cool sort of thing, and it really ends up being sort of like an art film. It's
Just too
impressive
esoteric. The controls become too weird and disjointed, and we see that a lot. We see that a lot in film, and you see that a lot in games as well.
Exactly, and that's the sort of thing that when these guys were focused, they were actually planning on building a different game, and the story goes they're sitting around one night, kicking around that idea, and somebody starts talking about this, and they sketch one of the wobbles, and they say, wait a minute, this is actually kind of neat. And their pitch at the challenge was great. Everybody instantly understood these guys, could see that that yes, this is an interesting way to use this this game model, and let's see how it does. And so what I'm hoping is that by the end of this, everybody watching, all the Gamebreaker TV fans, can try a neat, innovative game.
Very, very cool. So go check it out. It's not out yet, but we'll be keeping up with them. It's you can go to playnimbus.com to get some more information on Wobbles, and I'm sure we'll be getting some more video and information right here on Monty's Minute. So All right, let's get to some questions. First up this week, this one in from Lieutenant Joho says, you seem to be down on hardware. Do you think the Leap motion controller will have a chance? First up, Monty, I think maybe you could set this up and tell everybody a little bit about the Leap motion controller, as I believe you actually have a Leap motion controller.
I do. It is one of the dev versions. It's this little thing here. And what it does is it sits in front of your screen. And they've got sensors built into the top, and it can see your hand above the screen. So, encourage everybody to go check out the video on their site. But it'll detect all of the fingers on two hands, and it essentially lets you control the screen in 3D.
Wow.
And it's really remarkable that there's so many things that are just very intuitive with it. As you see in the video, all the stuff that makes a tablet great and intuitive for all sorts of people, you can just do. And when people were talking about, touchscreen computers, that, will we have a computer with a touchscreen? No, we won't, because that's stupid. You get fingerprints all over it. The distance
This keeps
of
your
the
monitor nice
monitor.
and clean. Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta ask you about the accuracies. The first question I have to have about this is that I would imagine, this is obviously watching this video. It looks incredibly accurate. But how does it? Have you had much hands-on time with actually how it feels?
Yeah. So I've been playing around with some of the stuff in the SDK, and we've got a couple of teams that are actually working on concepts with it that hopefully I'll be able to bring to the show. But it tracks remarkably well with very little latency. So they didn't do anything fancy. They didn't try and use Bluetooth. It's like, here's a USB cable. We know how fast that works, and it's awesome. And so all of this turns it into a really nice environment. And one of the things that I got to say I love about these guys is their developer support, the information they have and all of that is better than some stuff that's actually production. I bought a Razer Hydra a while back for a game, and I got to tell you, the support for that absolutely stank. Really no information whatsoever on what games were compatible with it, how to set it up, all that stuff. Leap comes, you plug it in, and you're using it, and it's like, wow, this is really awesome. It's not big. I don't have to wear it on my head and look like an idiot. I can just, set it down and start using it, and it works tremendously well.
This looks incredibly interesting. I mean, I'm looking at the website here, and it looks like, they're definitely showing off sort of the uses for maybe artists and things like that. But do you see the average person purchasing something like this to just using their normal sort of daily computing with just email and just kind of day-to-day stuff?
Yeah, I think there's a bunch of useful stuff just in terms of desktop management and moving windows and sizing stuff and all of that, particularly for people who are not, hardcore computer users. All the reason that old people like tablets is it's pretty straightforward. You just wave your hands the way you expect it. The other area, though, that I'm really interested in is in the gaming aspects of it. So one of the things they don't actually show well on the videos that are on their site, but it's in one of their SDK demos, is this is actually 3D. So it's not just tracking you, on that XY plane where your finger is.
Oh, it's actually how close you are to your monitor and Z sort of axis? Wow.
There's a Z axis there, and so it's really neat when your finger moves in and stuff, and that works on the depth of what's happening inside of the monitor in the game. And that has all sorts of neat possibilities as to, there's all sorts of new gameplay designs and things like that. And, I see this as being useful enough that people are going to buy it just to use it, which then gives them a really good shot at, a game developer, yes, I'm going to build a game that works on this because there's an install base that matters. And, one of the things that I hear a lot from game developers is, we built this for the PC or we built it for the tablet, and we can't go to the other platform because we'd have to redesign the whole control mechanism, and it's hard to do, and it's hard to add these things. With this, I think you'll see a whole bunch of, really neat tablet games which have a nice interface flipping over, and you'll see a lot of innovative stuff. So I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you sound really excited about it. And I'm just checking out their pre-order page here. So this is not on the market yet. You have an early dev version. It says it's shipping July 22nd, so not too far off. And my next question was I was wondering, man, I wonder what the price in this is, because I actually have not heard of this product. $79.99, which I actually thought it was going to be a lot more expensive. I have to say, I definitely thought it was going to be closer to $150, almost maybe double that price there. So $80, shipping July 22nd. You sound excited about this. So you have been kind of down on hardware. You've kind of, you've said that you think Ouya is going to have an uphill battle. I know you think you look at the Oculus Rift as possibly having a pretty struggle as well. What do you think of the Leap, though? Do you think this actually could be a piece of hardware because this is really innovative too? This is like kind of on cutting edge hardware, and that's even harder to kind of break into a market. You think they have a chance?
Yeah, no, I think they have a great chance. I mean, one of the things is it's not particularly expensive at $80. That's a really sweet price point. It is intuitive and has multiple uses. So, like the Razer Hydra, I've got one game it works with.
Right.
And for the life of me, can't find another one. And that's $80 down the drain. But and when you actually use it, like when you watched that video, you said, "Oh, cool." So you can imagine the alpha geeks in the office, in the house, are going to want to get one of these just because, oh, cool. And once they start doing it, everybody's going to look and go, "Oh, cool. I want one of those." And you're going to see that deployment base. And that's really the critical thing about all of this is how easy is it to get a lot of units deployed? Because once you have those units deployed, then there's a market to sell your apps into. There's a market to build stuff into. And
so that's another interesting point here. I wanted to cover the apps aspect of this, because I didn't realize that till now that I'm looking more into this. So this is not necessarily a peripheral that will work with just any program. So we're watching them paint and things like that. So you have to have an app that's going to be Leap, obviously. But I wonder, do you see companies like Adobe possibly adding this into Photoshop and extensions or something like that to make something like this work? Or are we going to have to rely on just specific apps for the Leap?
No, I think you'll see a couple of things. One is you'll see people build sort of overlays that, okay, I'm going to work with the Leap, figure out what you're doing, and then I'm going to push it back to the OS or the app level. So, call them a plugin, an overlay, something like that. But the other thing is when I showed this to 3D artists, loved it, blew their mind. So, they've got tablets for drawing, something like this that they can move things around, they can unwrap UVs, all of that.
This is Minority Report. This is the Minority Report, like peripheral right here. This is like, just hands in the sky, in the air, just moving things around your desktop. This is awesome. I want to hook this up to this thing behind me and have like, a huge display, just stand there and just move, go do that.
Well, think what you could do just with the stuff behind you during a show to change things and to move them in and out. Not this mouse clicking, not this 4-monitor thing.
Well, yeah, and it'd be, oh god, my brain's going crazy because it's like, and you see like on CNN where they've got, they got touch screens and stuff, but essentially this could become your thing. You don't even have to touch it. You just get near it and do it. You could do all kinds of the weather stuff, so you could see all kinds of even big media and production kind of using something like this as well for $80. All right, I'm sold. My credit card's coming out as soon as we're done with the show, and I'm buying one of these because I want it on July 22nd. Really interesting. I'm glad you brought this up. I've never even heard of this. I've never heard of this peripheral. All right, so Monty's not that down on hardware. He likes the Leap.
Just stuff that'll fail.
Yeah, exactly. All right, next up, this one is from Max McKay. Max says, "Hey guys, I was wondering if players using the Foundry in the Neverwinter MMO to create their own dungeons will ever run into copyright issues with other games. I'd love to recreate some of the old dungeons from EverQuest 2, but would that be a problem?" Max McKay. Good question. And I gotta say kudos for at least you taking the time to ask for an answer on something like that, because I think most people would just be like, "Who cares? Just do it." Is that possible?
Yeah. So I actually went and I talked to a couple of intellectual property rights lawyers that I know. And, you know, technically, it is copyright material. So here's my design for the dungeon. If you go and use my design for the dungeon, I can come and sue you and say you're not allowed to do that. Now, that's the law of it. The reality of it, though, I think, is if you're not making money doing it, so if you do it as a fan thing, they're going to say, God bless you, wonderful, great, you're paying homage to something we did, we like that.
Especially if you put it in the text in the game. You're like,
Yeah,
I recreated
exactly.
the EverQuest dungeon, and I don't know how Neverwinter would take to that, but
If Neverwinter gives you the opportunity, I don't think they're going to complain as long as they're not hosting the map. If the map's hosted on third-party site, Neverwinter can't get sued. I think Sony looks at that and they say, that's great. Look at the impact we've had on the community that they want to do something like this. And if anybody, and there are some, what's the word for it, uptight people out there who might complain about something, and I think if they did, it would actually be negative for the person who holds the copyright, positive for Neverwinter, and positive for whoever developed that map. And so, I'd say go right ahead and do it. Just don't do anything that earns you money doing it, because that's the kind of thing that, you'll get into righteous trouble over.
I do know some attorneys are definitely sticklers though about I don't know if it's copyright or trademark or both, that the law, the way it's kind of written is that if you do not try to enforce your copyright or your trademark regardless of the situation, that you do run the risk of losing it. So yeah. I know a lot of attorneys will be very much sticklers, and like, they don't necessarily want to target maybe, just somebody who does something like this, but they're almost forced to some extent to actually go after that and shut that down, because they have to show the copyright and trademark division of the government that hey, we actually care about this copyright and trademark, and we're keeping it in good standing, and we need to keep this. And so that could come into it, I guess, slightly. I think you're right about, the reality of it is you're probably not going to get pinched on something like this. For them, there's probably way under the radar.
So trademarks much easier to enforce, and something that, they're going to jump on, a lot of the time. And for some companies, it's the lawyers taking the action. Remember when Hasbro sent the wargaming guys a cease and desist because they wanted to do World of Battleships? Trademark lawyers, and the lawyers, the Hasbro guys that I know were embarrassed by it. But their trademark lawyers do what they do. So trademark, you really want to aggressively enforce. And a copyright, if you're not using a large chunk of the work, it's okay. You don't have to defend a copyright the same way you do a trademark. And their lawyers are actually going after people who are doing real harm. And so I think they can say that, look, yes, we enforced it in all these places where money mattered, but we didn't go into every nook and cranny of the universe to find things that really didn't matter. And, that's why we're not giving up our rights to this.
All right, next up, this one in from Jordana. Says, first up, I want to say I love Gamebreaker TV. Thank you, Jordana. Thanks for watching. She says, I'm a young female currently finishing, I have 1 semester left, of game programming at a college in Toronto, and I'm not overly into it. In fact, I've decided I don't like most aspects of programming. I love game design, and I love taking games that already exist, picking them apart, and figuring out how to make them better. Is there any job positions in the industry which would best suit this role? Second, I'm thinking of going back to school for public relations. Would it be overly difficult to get to public relations in the gaming industry? Thanks. Let's take the first part of the question. She went to school for programming, hates programming, liked picking games apart. What's her position? What does she do?
Yeah, and this is something that everybody should realize is probably 10 to 20% of everyone who does programming ends up being a core coder. It is hard to be a production coder. It's really hard. Computer science, any of that stuff. And so a lot of people end up doing things that are related to it. So they're, they're trying to deal with, and that's really annoying. They're trying to deal with technical things. They end up in support. They end up as sales engineers and things like that. So for her, the opportunity of being a producer or working in game design is entirely there. A path through QA, a path through marketing. There's lots of different ways to get in with the skill set she has. And, more importantly is it's hard to understand coding and engineers and things like that. So people who have that knowledge base, who have some experience with it, they're infinitely more valuable in other jobs that don't actually require programming at the core. And so, that sort of thing, God love you, don't worry about it. You don't have to code for a living. But knowing what you know about coding is going to help you in your career.
So now, what about in public relations and PR? Because that's definitely kind of not a completely different it's very different than programming.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
It is, but there's a lot of senior producers. So if she's good at game design, you can talk to engineers, you can talk to artists, and you can, talk publicly. That makes you extremely valuable as a producer. They're in any company. The marketing team is always trolling through the ranks to who can we put in front of a reporter? Who can we put in front of a camera? That's not going to lock up, say something stupid, lose, track of what they're supposed to be talking about. It's hard to do. So somebody who, can speak technically and do that, that's really valuable. The PR angle, and how you know this as well as I do, there's lots of entry points through being a member of the media, doing things like that, writing articles, doing podcasts, doing Gamebreaker TV. Any of those things, there's lots of value in, and game companies look at that and say, yeah, you know how to communicate, you understand the industry, you can talk about this stuff, we'd love to have you as part of what we're doing.
Mr. Monty Sharma, follow him on the Twitter at Monster, MONTSTER27. And of course, if you have a question for Monty, you can send it in. It's monty@gamebreaker.tv. That's the email address you can reach Monty at. So send in your questions. We love the questions. Video questions, too. We don't get enough video questions on the show. If you guys have a video question, record yourself, post it up on YouTube, send it to monty@gamebreaker.tv, and we'll play it on the show. So you can follow me at Gary Gannon on Twitter, follow Gamebreaker TV, Gamebreaker TV, and of course, follow our Facebook page at facebook.com/GamebreakerTV as well. We got a lot of contests and things like that going up. Monty, always a pleasure. Can't wait to hear more from the Wobbles people, and I'm purchasing my lead as soon as the show's over.
It'd be great. I'm looking forward to it. We'll see you.
Have a great week, everybody. Good to see you. See you next week.